COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. It is Tuesday, March 15th, and that means it is officially bracket season. And the TBU crew, as you can tell, is in full spirit. We are leaning into this head first, and we've got a really, really fun segment planned for today's podcast to really get into the theme of this bracket season. But Gallo, I enlisted the help of my dear friend, my whiteboard that is usually in the office, in the cubicle of my office, and it has seen quite the heated debate over the year.
Yeah, this is really going to bring the madness into our March Madness themed podcast today, because the whiteboard at Paris's desk generates a lot of madness amongst our coworkers in the office. There's lots of heated debates that end up on the whiteboard. Paris, why don't you tell the fine people some of the greatest hits over the course of the last couple years?
So here's the backstory. I got a whiteboard to try to get more organized in my life. It ended up just being a point of discussion because I started putting up hot takes of the week on my whiteboard just to get, some conversation going and get things heated up in the office. There have been a few. One of my favorites is the best fall candy is candy corn. That turned out to be a really heated discussion because
Big no.
Nobody knew what other candy qualified as fall candy, which is the point because candy corn is the best. And then another one of my favorites, Gallo, actually came from you, and it was the sandwich debate. You have to explain the sandwich debate.
Okay, so my theory is that, if you take pretty much any culture all over the globe, one thing that we can all relate to is the concept of the sandwich, which is basically some sort of starch with protein, dairy, vegetables inside of that starch, right? So in America, we've got the sandwich.
Right.
In Mexico, there's the taco, which is like a nice shell that's got all sorts of meat and cheese and vegetables inside of it. Even sushi, if you really want to go there, that's a starch. It's rice that's got some fish, some protein, some vegetables perhaps inside there. You can go all across the board. You can go, calzone or you can go crepe. You can go. I mean, there's a variety of different ways that you can go with this. And so I would just say, let's harmonize across the world and recognize that we don't have that many differences
through sandwiches.
Exactly. Everything, the way that I related to it is like, a square is a rectangle. And so there are a lot of things that you might not call a sandwich, but at the end of the day, it is a sandwich, right? So
where this really took a turn was I threw this out. I was like, okay, so pizza. And then Gallo threw it back at me. He's like, well, are you eating pizza the right way?
Right.
Because you need to fold it in half. And
that's the correct way to eat pizza. And there you've got your pizza sandwich.
And then that became its own hot take. Yeah. And so needless to say, this board is seeing a lot of conversation. And so it is ready for what we have planned today, which is something really, I think, really timely for this part of the season. There are not a lot of games left. We only have 3 road trips left. You were talking about this earlier. It's kind of crazy to think about. And so we have brought together all of the different kind of identities of the Thunder and what they've been building in terms of core identities, whether that's ball movement, getting to the paint, all of the different things that we've talked about on this podcast that Coach Dagnall and the players have mentioned time after time again in their press conferences. And we're going to put them on this bracket and break them down to kind of the most important, the number one core piece of the Thunder identity that needs to stay and move forward.
Yeah, I think this is great to pick thematically. These are things and concepts, even sometimes mantras, sayings that you're going to be very familiar with over the course of the year, not just because we've been talking about them, but this is what the players are talking about. This is what Mark Dagnall's talking about. And so I think, as we're heading into this home stretch here, this is not, Mark has talked about, this is not a run out the clock scenario. Every single one of these games that are remaining are absolutely precious. We see it with a guy like Lindy Waters. Like, if they're not doing everything, going full bore, exploring whether this guy, Lindy Waters, can be a carry forward player, as Mark Dagnall would put it, a guy that they can project out to be a part of the next great Thunder team, well, they're not doing their jobs if they're not uncovering that as much as they possibly can. down the stretch here.
Yep. And so we have 8 different kind of core pieces of the Thunder identity that we have ranked in terms of 1 seed through 4 seed.
Yeah, we're hitting you at the Elite 8 here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep. We're really pared it down. And so, Gallo, I'll let you go first in kind of breaking down and listing out the what's this? The Western Conference.
Yeah, we'll start with the 1 seed in the West. And that is assists and ball movement. Mm-hmm. And this really has been percolating lately because it's 4 straight games for the Thunder with at least 25 assists.
Right.
And so what we're seeing, and we talk about this all the time, there's individual development that is absolutely critical for this team this season, but there's also a team-wide development. That has to be sort of this undercurrent that's happening beneath the blips of the ups and downs that we're seeing of the guys. That is all going to be kind of like wave patterns, but what has to be this constant steady state level of improvement is what's going on under the surface with the team. And we're really seeing that as this Thunder squad leans into the style of play and the identity of getting the ball moving and racking up high numbers of assists.
I love that this is the number 1 seed because it is so all-encompassing in the Thunder's identity. I love that the red marker doesn't work. We're just going to stick with blue. That makes sense because Thunder. So I love that you chose assists for a number 1 seed because it is all-encompassing. 1, obviously, getting the ball moving. It gets the defense moving, but it gets everybody involved. And when everybody is involved offensively, everybody is sharp, everybody is engaged. And that is so critical in 1, keeping the defense on their toes, and 2, just like developing guys while they're out there too. You know, it'd be easy to just be like, okay, Shai's got the ball for this possession. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to sit here in the corner and maybe it potentially could come to me. That's not the case with anybody on this team, and that's because of the identity of ball movement that the Thunder's already established.
Right. Developing skills 1-on-5 is not that helpful in the grand scheme of things because and Shai actually laid this out perfectly last night after the Charlotte game, that, you know, this team is aiming to be playing very meaningful games, very meaningful and high pressure stakes. It's going to be critical that every single one of these guys on this team is racking up the types of experiences now that prepare them for those moments in the future. And the question that Shai was asked was about Poku and some of the efficiency that he's been able to provide lately. And, you know, basically what Shai was saying is like, we need him carrying forward and knocking out those reps right now, because when those games are extremely meaningful, we've got to be able to rely on him within our offensive system to be able to knock down shots within the flow, not go create something crazy one-on-one, but just, you know, hit singles basically.
That is a very, very sustainable style of play, regardless of who's on the floor, what lineup you have, whether you got injuries, who you're going up against. It really doesn't matter. That ball movement can translate across all of those different things. Great number 1 seed. Should I go with my number 1 seed?
Take us out east.
All right. So in the Eastern Conference, I don't know why we split this up, East and West. It's just NBA brain. But
we like to have fun around here.
We do. So my number 1 seed is youth opportunity / scoring. And obviously the Thunder has the youngest roster in the NBA, so we're bound to see a lot of that. But I put it as a core identity and something moving forward is because these young guys are leaning into this, and that's equally as important. There's kind of a 2 side to this story. There's the young guys who are leaning into it and taking advantage of the opportunity, coming out, being aggressive and being competitive and doing what the coaches are asking them to do. But then there's also the coaching staff side of it, where these guys are given a blank slate. They're not boxed in as soon as they walk into the building, and they're given the opportunity to go out there and make mistakes. Go be aggressive. If you turn the ball over, learn from it, but we're not going to yank you out of the game because of it. And leaning into that identity in terms of every day is an opportunity to take steps forward and keep being aggressive, growing yourself already at this young age. That's incredible.
Yeah, and part of that, a huge part of that is developing professional habits. And so we're seeing guys arrive at some of those conclusions on their own and with the help and tutelage of the coaching staffs. A couple examples recently, Alexei Pokusevski told us that he's been watching game film from last season, from his rookie year, to go back and just sort of remind himself of the progress that he's made, maybe where he kind of came from, what his baseline was last year, to get a glimpse of the reads that he's making now and what he's seeing on the floor now that he wasn't seeing back then. Another example, Lindy Waters talking to us about his pregame preparation, working on game-like shots. I mean, this is the exact same thing that 30-year-old Mike Muscala is doing every single pregame, which is I'm taking the exact shots in pregame warmups that I'm bound to get once the game comes.
Yes.
And so Lindy Waters is practicing those pump fake, one dribble sidestep, get the guy flying by you that's coming out to close out hard on you, and then still knocking down the three. When you're developing those professional habits, the results are going to come. The Thunder's averaging over 80 points per game from guys that are 25 and younger this season.
Seeing the off-court kind of habits and professionalism translate on the floor, that's something that is, invaluable in the NBA. The last thing I'll say about this is that if you look at the opportunities that the young guys have been given this season, rookie players, second-year players, 18, 19-year-olds, they're going up against one-of-one competition. Nikola Jokic, that Coach Dagnall talked about, the Charlotte Hornets, and just like the tempo that they play at. They're getting real game reps against these teams and against these opponents. That's film that you have now that you can go back and watch and say, yeah, I did go up against the best of the best. So it eliminates questions and kind of any like haziness around like, well, could I have maybe gone up against a guy like Nikola Jokic, or could I have, really gone chest to chest with Rudy Gobert? Well, yes, because you did it, and here's the film. And that's something that not every rookie in the NBA is getting those opportunities in those minutes. Not every second-year player is getting those opportunities in minutes, in real game minutes, which is something that is just so valuable, and you really can't put a value number on, I guess.
You and I were talking about this last night at the game, actually, and they're, not to get into specifics, but like there are teams who are in similar positions to the Thunder, maybe not as young, but that they don't know anything about their rookies on their team. Or even some of their second year players. Like the number of minutes that those guys have played to this point are negligible.
Right.
And if you have a rookie that's getting 5 to 8 minutes per game and has played 25 games all season long, those aren't evaluated. Like those aren't minutes where they can really be evaluated. Like that's just, it's hard to, and Marcus talked about this with like Olivier Sarr and with some of these other guys that like, okay, we're getting a chance to see what they're actually all about.
Absolutely. Okay. To your number 2 seed.
All right. The number 2 seed, resilience and comebacks.
Nice.
This really, both of our one seeds have been more about like bigger picture stuff. This is like what happens inside the lines, like that you can't replicate in a practice. You can't replicate in any other moment besides the heat of competition. Like assist, you can practice the ball movement stuff.
Yeah.
Youth, like you're investing in that in practice every single day. What happens with these dozen comebacks of 10 or more points that the Thunder have had so far this year, that can only happen when you are, as Michael Cage would say, mano y mano with another team, and you're living in the fight. And we've seen that from this team this season long, that they are willing to compete and willing to again, steal a line from Michael Cage, get nasty and stay in these games when they've been down massive amounts. Again, the 12 double figure comebacks, but they also have come back 7 times from 15 points, which is incredible.
Well, there have also been games where they haven't necessarily come back and won, but they did put themselves in a position to put pressure on the other team.
Right.
And I think this goes back to my number 1 seed, which we're not debating at the moment. We'll hold off on that. And we'll even see if these two get to the final. But I think it goes back to this point up here of professionalism and developing habits early. Yeah. Because these guys recognize that, okay, there's time on the clock. This is a 48-minute game, and we have the opportunity to make some noise. We're going to make the most of it. That's a professional habit that when you're building now can pay off volumes down the road, especially when you start playing in these, really high stakes games where now the crowd is into it. And now, every possession it means something. And so you're kind of creating this environment where you have to take those possessions very, very seriously. And like Coach Dagnall says, those last 5 minutes when, you've battled back from 21 points and now it's a 1-point ball game in the last couple of minutes, that's a completely different game than the previous 46 minutes.
Imagine if the Thunder had not had these types of contests. What does the team know about their competitive makeup? Right. And so again, as we go back to what you're pointing out, the evaluation process, like it's vital that the Thunder has had so many of these types of experiences to put their guys through and say, okay, because there's so many things that, yes, we're able to see courtside or fans are able to see on TV, but there are so many things that are happening inside those huddles and in the locker room at halftime, and that the coaches and the front office staff that they're witnessing that we don't have that glimpse into, that's helping them make the determinations if long term, okay, are these guys helping us in these situations? Are these guys, holding us back in these types of situations?
Yeah.
All of that will come out in the wash, but just very interesting that the Thunder has been able to be put in so many of those positions to even have this evaluation happen, given where their net rating is this year and maybe what you would expect. It also goes to show just the volatility of the NBA that no lead is really safe and that you're going to get a lot of these comebacks. The dozen that the Thunder has from double digits, that's up there near the top of the league, not quite number 1, but it's in the top 5.
I'm going to zoom out here from a fan perspective. We're talking a lot about the Thunder, but those comebacks make the Thunder so fun to watch.
Yes.
And a reason why you should never leave Paycom Center early on a game night. You should always stay until the final minute, because we have seen time and time again, the Thunder, even if they're down big early, they won't let it stay that way.
That's true.
Normally.
Yep.
All right.
Hit us with your 2 seed.
My number 2 seed is something that has been integral to the Thunder offense. This is getting into a little bit of basketball analysis here, but integral to the Thunder offense the entire season, led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that is paint touches. And everything is kind of interconnected on these themes, and that's intentional because, obviously you want to be able to grow towards something. But these paint touches, so valuable for the Thunder, and they lean into your number 1 seed over there, assists, because it gets the Thunder's offense. That is what they want to. They want to play through the paint, right? They want to be able to get to the lane, kind of generate a little bit of a blender offensively, and be able to play against driving kicks, those long closeouts. And Shai does a fabulous job of this. He's the league leader in drives per game for 2 years straight. That's an incredible stat in itself. And so we see what it's able to do when somebody is able to get to the paint for the Thunder, and keeping that and sustaining that as a part of the offense can pay off down the road.
This is the action item.
You put the 2 seed down here. Okay.
I did, yeah.
Right.
Like a real bracket.
Okay. I'm with you. I'm following
you. This is the action item when your goal is this type of ball movement and execution. It's paint touches. And it's really helpful when you have one of, if not the best isolation players in the entire NBA, because that's, as Mark likes to say, there's a cheat code that Shai has to be able to get into here and get that blender going. And the really cool thing about Shai in the way that he's embraced the Thunder style is, like, this is totally natural. So this overarching style and plan with this as the first execution point blends perfectly into Shai's natural instincts, but it doesn't have to be that he's like taking the shot every single time after, or that he has to be the one to initiate the first creation. The Thunder leads the NBA in 61.9 drives per game. Shai accounts for about 28 of those.
Right.
So it's not like he's the only person driving and generating these paint touches.
Right.
It's everyone doing that. Oftentimes he's the one that's starting that action, but as we saw last night, Tre Mann racks up 6 assists. Like, he's a secondary creator off of that first initial creation. Darius Baisley, Josh Giddey has been in both of those roles with Shai. Sometimes the initial, sometimes the secondary. All of that leads into an ability for the Thunder to get into the paint and then make decisions from there.
Yeah, and I want to take a step back and just explain, like, how rare it is that your paint touches are generated from drives, right? Like, when you normally think paint touches in a traditional basketball sense, that means you have a center who you are feeding the ball to on almost every possession, who is obviously, a force down there. For the Thunder, it's generated through ball movement. It's generated because, and it might be Shai on the very initial action, using a ball screen and getting downhill, getting to the rim. Or it might be Shai giving up the ball, moving it around, moving the ball around the perimeter, creating those cracks and advantages for other players to get into the lane, drive to the lane, or even a back cut and a guy hits them in the paint. That's a paint touch. That's an opportunity to get inside the paint and create some confusion. So I think the Thunder's found a really good way of getting that advantage because it is so valuable in the NBA without necessarily having like this looming presence in the paint on every single possession.
And it also helps you start to craft an identity of efficiency before your players are efficient players yet. You know, these guys are still working on all of those skills. They're working to become better shooters, but your shot profile is something that you want to get down now so that it's completely natural for your guys to be taking those types of shots when they get better at shooting.
Yes.
So right now, 50% of the Thunder's field goal attempts come in the paint. That's a top 6 mark in the NBA. And over 90% of their total shots come either in the paint or from behind the 3-point line.
Yes.
That's exactly what you want to have as your shot distribution profile. And so by leaning into the paint touches, the Thunder is leaning into that as well.
And one last thing I'll say, of those 3-pointers, a significant portion, I don't have the exact number on me, are catch and shoot.
Yeah.
And that's the most efficient 3-pointer you can take, because when you were shooting in the gym by yourself and you're practicing your shot, where are your passes coming from? Right in the paint, right underneath the rim. And so when you replicate that action in a game action, that leads to higher and more efficient shots as well.
I do the thing where I kind of just like spin the ball back to myself and like, you know.
No, Gallo's such a good shooter. He doesn't even need a rebounder. The ball just like bounces back to him after you.
No. I'm such a bad shooter that nobody wants to shoot in the gym with me. So I got to be out there like flipping the ball, you know. I'm not quite as bad as the boss in Bad Boys. Remember in Bad Boys when the boss is in the gym shooting, you know, but you know, I'm trying to get to Paris and Michael Cage's level, but
I've seen you shoot, Gallo. Yeah. It's pretty good.
It's okay.
It's good.
Okay.
It's good. You got that mid range down, real nice.
I got the mid range.
There you go.
All right, less about me, more about the Thunder. Okay. Here comes speaking of truth and lies. Moments of Truth is the 3 seed here.
This is my favorite. I'm not going to lie. Okay, this is probably my favorite one.
So this is a dark horse.
Yeah.
So Moments of Truth. This is a mantra that has been echoed from Mark Daignault to Darius Baisley to Teo Maladone on down the line. These are, again, it's so interesting that these two we've got them paired next to each other because they're
the gut checks.
The gut check, the competitiveness stuff that you need to have in the game. And this is going up for a block and not making what they call a business decision at the rim. You know, it's making sure that you're sticking your nose in every play.
Yep.
You're standing in there for charges. You're ready when you're Trey Mann and you're the lightest guy on the floor and you're ripping the ball out of Nikola Jokic's hands, that you're in the fight and you're willing to get a foul call if it means, you know, you might have started a fast break if you didn't get called for that foul.
This one it's my favorite because everybody can get in on the action. It's something I'm a sucker for a stat that doesn't show up in the box sheet. Box score. Goodness gracious, I'm so sorry. Something that doesn't show up in the stat line, but makes an incredible impact on the game. And for me, in college, it was taking charges. We didn't track charges, but those were my favorite plays of the game. Moments of truth, when I see a guy go up there and just like completely erase a shot or deter a shot. Maybe it's not a block. Maybe it's just enough of a contest to force a missed shot or step in there and take a charge, sacrifice his body. That is something, it doesn't require any level of like skill to do that. It just takes guts.
Yep.
And it takes a blue collar mentality. And that's something that I think has been, Gallo, correct me if I'm wrong, but in terms of the Thunder identity as a whole for its entire, you know, existence in Oklahoma City, that's been true. It's your, you know, bring your lunch pail to work every day, get ready to get your hands dirty and do the work required, sacrifice for the good of the team, even if it doesn't show up in the shiny, you know, stats and it might not be a highlight reel on the next day.
Yeah, and this is also an area where the Thunder can really hold their players accountable. At this stage in their growth and development, what you really want to be doing is walking with them, encouraging them, helping them advance their games to the next level, helping them learn. You're yelling at them, screaming at them is like demoralizing. That's not helpful. That's not what's necessary at this stage. However, this is one aspect of the game that the Thunder has to and can hold their guys accountable for. There's only been a handful of times that I've really seen this season where a guy didn't stick his nose in the play, didn't rise to the moment of truth. Those have been the only times that I can really think of this season where Mark has pulled a guy on the spot and had him come sit down. And look, that doesn't mean that guy's a bad player or doesn't have guts. It's like he just missed that moment, missed that opportunity. And that's something that Mark is saying, like, those are the ones that we have to correct in the moment.
Right.
The other stuff we can go back and look at on film, and we can dissect and break down, and we can talk about after the heat of the moment has gone. But this is a heat of the moment issue, and we've got to have that 100% down pat while we're on the floor.
It's because it's the ultimate controllable, right?
Yes.
Like, you can't control if the ball goes through the rim or not. You can't control whether the other team is going to get hot from behind the three, but you can control whether or not you put yourself in the fight.
Yeah.
And the Thunder always wants to be in the fight. Love that these two are right next to each other because it's all about the fight.
And to be clear, we've seen this happen way more often than not this season. We've seen Darius Baisley block Rudy Gobert at the rim and Giannis at the rim, and we've seen
Trey Mann rip the ball away from Nikola Jokic.
We've seen Lindy Waters chase down a fast break dunk and block the shot at the rim. I mean, we've seen every single guy at some point or another take it. I mean, Olivier Sarr takes an elbow to the chin from Domas Sabonis, shakes it off. He's on the pod the next day, no problem. You know,
one of his first games in a Thunder uniform, also.
Right. Yeah. So we see these guys put themselves on the line, and so we would be remiss if we hadn't put that one up here.
Yes. Okay. All right. Here we go.
You're up.
My number 3. We're sticking with kind of like the basketball stuff on my side, I think. So this is kind of like the X's and O's, and yours is more maybe philosophy.
Sure.
Maybe not. But this one is the number 3 seed. We are talking 3-point defense. Oh, did we mess this up? No, we didn't. Okay, cool. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're talking 3-point defense, and this is something that the Thunder has been incredibly good at all season long. They had an incredible stretch where they held, correct me, how many opponents? Something like 16, maybe 17.
It was over 20.
Okay.
It was over 20. I wish I could remember the exact number. I'm sorry.
I'm missing it too, but it was easily like an incredible stat that pointed to the consistency that the Thunder was going out and contesting shots with. And that's why I wanted to put it up here. It's not because the Thunder says we are going to be the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA. It's not because the Thunder said our identity is on no 3-pointers. It's we are going to go out there and we are going to play a solid shell that rotates with urgency, that helps the other person, and that contests every single shot.
Yep.
And if you're late, still go out there and contest. Get a high hand. Run out there with some urgency. But be there on the shot. And that consistency, those controllables with each defensive possession led to an incredible streak of 3-point defense. That's still really strong, by the way. Like, it's not like the Thunder just fell off a cliff. It's just they ran into some really hot 3-point shooting teams over the past 4 games. But that is something that is sustainable.
Yeah, 51 total games this season that the Thunder has held an opponent under 40% shooting. I want to say, we'll try to come up with this next time, but I want to say it was in the mid-20s of consecutive games that the Thunder had held its opponent under 40% shooting, and that was a record dating back to the early 80s.
Right.
And the Thunder also leads the NBA in total shots contested per game, and they're second in the NBA in 3-pointers contested per game.
Right.
So, again, as you're saying, just as you think schematically about how this team wants to play defense, it's pack the paint, fire out to the perimeter, contest shots with a good stick hand.
Yeah.
And that's what the Thunder has done and executed on. It's why, outside of a few like blow up games, you think about the loss at Memphis and a couple recently to Minnesota, like the Thunder has been hovering around 10th in defensive efficiency all season long.
Right.
It's primarily because it's been doing the best that it can at taking away the easy stuff at the rim and the most efficient stuff from behind the 3-point line.
Yes, and that is something that every single player can lean into defensively, and it's something easily attained. So like guys who need to improve on the defensive end, if you stick to the controllables on that end of the floor, you are put in a position to be successful because you just have to be engaged on every possession, slide over to help, rush out with urgency, get a high hand, do that consistently time over time, rather than say, I need you to be a better defender and like leave it at that. It's like there are these like there's a list of controllables on that end of the floor that if you stick to, you can improve and you can make an impact on that end.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
One more.
4
for
seed.
each. All right.
Okay. This is bench points. And this, again, sort of from a philosophical standpoint, is the way that the Thunder wants to be looking at things long term is not your starters and your bench. And so, yes, we're sort of cheating here a little bit. But what they want to have is like a cohesive team where you're getting production from all up and down the lineup, and you're getting guys that are ready to contribute no matter what. So the defense is not like that. You have 5 guys in your starting unit, you have 5 guys in your bench unit that are playmakers, scoring threats as well. And this all sort of culminated in I think 211 consecutive game streak of at least 20 bench points for the Thunder that got snapped earlier this season. But,
and it dated back seasons, obviously, 211 games, but still, like, that's a heck of a streak.
I think this was dating back to before you were even here, Paris.
It was early 2019.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy.
No, and when that streak got snapped, it was a heartbreaking moment. We had to take a moment in the press conference room after the game just to mourn the loss.
Yeah, that was tough stuff.
That was a sad one.
Yeah,
but I'm completely with you on this one.
Yeah.
I was like hesitant. Should it be a 4 seed? Because it's been so prevalent for the Thunder. They've always had guys step up off the bench, and it says a lot about this group that readiness and professionalism is just like already innate. And you don't get that with a young group, right? Like normally that's something that you have to like try to instill. And maybe at this part of the season, maybe we start seeing it. But for the Thunder, it's been from the very outset. And it's because it's ingrained on day one during training camp. You're a part of this team. You're engaged. Your number could be called at any moment. And when it is, we need you out there. And so you got to make sure that you're ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah. And we've seen that come to life here with this team. Everybody has scored 18 times this season. Yeah. So you have 18 games of everybody getting in to the scoring column 4 times this year. The Thunder has had 50 or more bench points. Those are explosive nights for your team when you're getting that type of production coming off the bench.
Yep. And one last thing. Everybody getting in on the action, it just says so much because you have to remember the rotation minutes have fluctuated so much this season. Isaiah Roby was, getting starting minutes, just blue minutes, a couple minutes. Teo Maladone, remember he would come in for like 30-second spurts every now and then, and now they're starting over these past couple of games. And so I think it's just a really strong testament to like if you prove yourself and you show yourself that you can be ready, you can make an impact on a game.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Here's my 4th seed. And it's boards. The Thunder has been in the top 10 in boards almost all season long, which has kind of been under the radar a little bit.
6th right now.
Yeah. Exactly. And I love this stat because, again, it kind of goes back to our paint touches conversation. It's been everybody. It hasn't just been the Thunder center in that possession.
Oh, for sure.
It's been Darius Baisley. It's been Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and Aaron Wiggins. Like, these guys are all really making an impact on the glass. And I love this conversation earlier in the season because we really got into the weeds of like how the Thunder has balanced increasing their defense, but also still being a good or defensive rebounding while also still being a good transition defense team. Yeah. And that conversation is like basketball brain, just like candy. Because they work together, obviously. If you send more people to the glass, you expose yourself out in transition. But the Thunder found out, and something that Coach Dagnall said was that actually, if you send people to the glass, it kind of helps your transition defense in a way. Yeah. Because now it forces the defense to send more, or it sends,
it holds everybody up.
Yes. It holds everybody up. You have to send more bodies to, match the bodies that are at the glass. And so seeing the Thunder kind of thrive on the defensive boards while also still taking care of transition defense has been really, really interesting to see this season.
Yeah, it's been a huge factor in their ability to prevent some of those like explosive scoring nights from the teams that just eat you alive with second chances. That's been a major focus going into games against teams like Denver or teams like Memphis and even Minnesota. Like, you got to be able to limit second chances to some of these teams that really love to rack them up for the most part throughout the course of the season, up until the last maybe couple weeks when the team has really been shorthanded and been smaller because of that. The Thunder did an excellent job on the glass, and you can look to a couple guys who I think have really helped with that. And one of them, Josh Giddey, who, comes in, he's a rookie. He's the second youngest guy in the entire NBA, and he's in the top 40 in rebounds per game in the entire NBA. He's, I think, number 3 among all rookies in rebounding as well. So like really impressive stuff for a guard to be doing that. Right. And then Darius Baisley, who leads his entire draft class in total rebounds as well. Right. So like, again, he's not this big hulking center. He's 6'8", and is sometimes defending shooting guards.
Right.
And yet here he is like leading the entire 2019 draft class in total rebounds. So very cool that the Thunder has gotten such great contributions on the glass from those two guys in particular.
And this is one of those other just effort stats that sometimes you get the opportunity by putting yourself in the just giving yourself a chance. Yeah. And I see like Teo Maledon like led the Thunder in rebounding a couple of games ago, maybe against Minnesota, the last game against Minnesota.
Yeah.
He's not this huge guy. Yes, he's big for kind of a point guard, but he's not just like, you know, gonna go out there and just muscle through Rudy Gobert, but he put himself in the position to mix it up under there. He wasn't afraid of it. He obviously had worked on his body this offseason to give himself that opportunity, but that's an effort stat that everybody can get involved in, and everybody has gotten involved in at this point.
And rebounds matter because possessions matter.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, when this team is surging and heading for, you know, potential postseason sometime down the line, every single one of their games that is going to count and matter, and most games in the NBA come down to 3 to 4 possessions.
Yeah.
And if you're turning that dial by that amount in a game, it could be huge.
Yep. Okay, so here's our Elite 8.
Yes.
This is going to be really interesting to see how we get this down to a winner.
Yeah, we're going to try to land the ship here. We're also going to employ the help of our trusty producer, Matt Bishop.
On standby.
Yeah, he can come and break some ties here if we can't decide for ourselves who should advance here. And I'd say we kind of just rip through them and figure out. I mean, unless we have some true serious debate, I think we rock and roll and we work our way to a winner.
Having worked with you for this long, I think we're pretty aligned on a lot of these. So let's go ahead and let them rip. Let's start with this Northwest quadrant up here.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I think pretty clear the overarching foundation of what this Thunder organization wants this next iteration of the team to be about is the assists, it's the ball movement, it's that identity that the team is trying to lean into.
And you get to that, the bench has to do that too, in order to maintain an identity, make sure that things don't fall off when they step into the game. Playing to the identity of moving the ball.
Right.
That's where those bench points come from because they stick to the identity. So it boils down to that. So I'm with you on that. That sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Just stay out west.
Southwest.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So moments of truth and comebacks.
Actually, this one's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Me personally, darn it. I want to say moment of truth. My heart says moments of truth, but my brain says comebacks.
I'm going to say moments of truth here.
Really?
I think it gets the upset because this is something you can control no matter what.
Right.
The comebacks, you've got to have things go your way. You know, you can have the have the mentality, but at the end of the day, you might not see the results of these. And so we're applauding the 12 double-digit comebacks that the Thunder has had this season.
Right.
To be fair, you know, we might not even be looking at that if the Thunder had the right mentality and their shots just didn't fall.
That's a good point.
And shots did fall for the other team.
That's a good point.
I think this actually, having this allows for these things to happen. I'm
going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Just one quick thing. And I'm going to the mentality that leads to the comeback, right? The professionalism, the play, the 48-minute mentality and the possession by possession, just chip away at it, one chip at a time. That is kind of sustainable for a young team to recognize they're never out of the fight. We're not going to give up. We're going to be resilient, and we can stick with it even if things aren't going our way. I think that's a good skill to develop. But are we talking the comebacks or the skill to get to the comeback? Should we?
Let's go. Let's go to Bishop. What do you think?
Trusty Matt Bishop.
Okay, I was actually thinking comebacks at first, but I like Nick's argument that he made with moments of truth. Like, if you're willing to stick your nose in there and make these type of plays, it's contagious, obviously, to the team, and that could be one factor in enabling a comeback, maybe.
Okay. That's a good point. Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean, if everybody's like doing these moments of truth, maybe it doesn't have to be like a comeback.
That's another way to flip it on its head.
All right, Matt Bishop with the tiebreaker. I think you nailed it. I think you're right. Now you've completely changed my mind. So yeah, we're with moments of truth on that one. All right.
Your
to
weapon.
The Eastern Conference, youth opportunity versus boards. This is a no-brainer,
sorry,
right?
Sorry, boards. sorry, rebounds. The rebounds will come as these young guys develop physically and mentally as well.
You got to keep leaning into the opportunity.
Yeah.
Leaning into the opportunity sometimes means getting on the glass and sticking your nose under the board. So, like, yes, we're sticking with the youth opportunity there. All right. That was an easy one. We'll see if the next one is the same.
I think that this one might be a little bit difficult the way that our other 2-3 matchup was. I'm currently leaning towards 3-point defense primarily because the Thunder has hung so much of its hat on the defensive end of the floor so far this year.
Right.
And you look at so many teams that are sort of in this stage of their arc, and what do you see? You see that they're top 12, top in the top half of the league in scoring, but they're like 28th or 29th in defense. The Thunder has completely inverted that.
Yep.
And they've been a team that all season long has really done the work defensively, and the offense is trying to catch up. And so I think maybe to be truthful about where the Thunder is in its arc right now, it might be the 3-point defense.
Here's my only beef.
Okay.
I'm with you. And I am team defense all day and twice on Sunday. Okay. If it didn't say 3-point,
okay, yeah,
I would be completely on board.
Right.
And I think we were talking more defense when we mentioned 3-point defense, but in terms of just overall identity for the Thunder, I'm leaning more towards paint touches. Okay. Because that is the bread and butter and the sauce of the Thunder's offense and how it generates points. Yeah. The 3-point defense is a result of...
You're making me hungry, by the way, with the bread and the butter and the sauce. These are my people, Ferris.
So sorry. And we might have Matt Bishop here one more time, because I'm just struggling with the 3-point element of it. It's very niche, very specific. And it's because of the controllables on the defensive end that the Thunder has been able to be so good on 3-point defense. But this one just seems more, I don't know, sustainable, maybe.
Okay, Bish, help us out.
So I'm going to go with Paris on this one. Okay. Easier the buckets, the better.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Paint touches it is. And that is not to say that 3-point defense is not critically important. And maybe we just need to do this, and that would have made it a lot easier. Just defense in general.
We didn't. That team didn't make the tournament. So
That's right. That's right. Okay. So we're going paint touches here. Yep. And we have now reached the Final Four.
There we go.
All right, Gallo.
Okay.
Back to the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Final.
I think we're still tracking with the 1 seed here, in my opinion. I think it's still the. Dang! Now your little sigh made me second guess myself.
You got to just be confident. Go with it.
Well, here's the deal. You need to have a clear-cut identity and style of play. But even if you have that on offense, if you're not in the fight, if you're not gritty, none of that's going to matter.
This is true.
So I think I'm actually, when I first started this answer, I was going one way, but I think I'm actually going moments of truth.
Here's how I'm thinking about it in my head. I'm leaning in the same direction. Which team would you be more fearful going up against? Yeah. A team who moves the ball really well, or a team that you're not going to get anything easy from because they are just willing to sacrifice everything to prevent you from getting what you want?
In the words of Michael Scott, would I rather be loved or hated? I'd rather loved or feared. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. I want people to be so afraid of our ball movement and how much we're going to be in the fight. So clearly you want both, but I do agree with you. The reason why all of these things have happened, the reason for the comebacks, the reason for the gritty 3-point defense, the reason for the undersized boards has been the moments of truth. Yeah, and I think that's where we got to go.
Man, my sleeper, I love it. That's why I was so excited about moments of truth when I saw it up there. I was like, we made it a 3 seed, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know what can happen in March.
And people really do underestimate the value of,
a good marker.
Yes, clearly. This has been through some stuff. This has seen some things. So we've got one out of the West. Time for the East.
Yes.
Paint touches versus youth. It's like youth scoring and opportunity.
Sure.
I I think the 1 seed wins here.
I think the 1 seed.
I think the 1 seed wins.
Yeah, this is chalk over here on the eastern.
Look at this
side of things.
Look at this. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Up to this point, and it's because leaning into your youth opportunity means playing to your identity, which is paint touches, defense. Yeah. It's getting on the glass, sticking your nose in there. So
yeah.
All right, youth opportunity it is. That was an easy one. Okay, we've got the showdown.
All right, the championship game. We're still a few weeks out from this in real life.
Yeah.
But here in the Thunder bracket breakdown, we've got moments of truth versus the youth and opportunity. And that really folds into growth and development as well that the team is leaning into. So I would say overarching.
Yes.
You've got to go with the youth and the opportunity here because at the end of the day, what the Thunder is in the hunt for is the type of primetime players that you need to have to make a real sustainable run in this league. And if you think about the letter that Sam Presti wrote in the Oklahoman years and years ago, when you think about all of the moves that the Thunder has made from a big picture standpoint, when you think about the incredible amount of draft capital, the draft capital that's been used already in guys like Josh Giddey and Trey Mann, and the resources that are going into unearthing every stone, like a Lindy Waters, again, like an Aaron Wiggins, who is on a 2-way deal. I mean, you've got to be able to find these guys. And the only way that you're going to do that is through the youth opportunity movement that's gone on here. The players that are on this team right now, we don't know which ones of those will be actually in those moments of truth down the line.
Yes.
The key right now is finding the players that can be in those situations in the future.
That was so beautifully said. And just to wrap it up and put a bow on it, the youth opportunity is so multifaceted, right? I agree. It's about the players taking advantage of the opportunity that they've been given, and it's about the players, the coaching staff, the front office giving these players these opportunities to have a moment of truth and prove themselves when the time comes. And so for those reasons, I'm with you. I think youth opportunity wins. Matt Bishop?
I agree.
All right.
We have a unanimous vote.
Just like the Thunder organization aligned in the understanding that this is how you create sustained success in Oklahoma City. Yes. Given the current parameters in the league, given everything that you have to do within the framework of the collective bargaining agreement and free agency and the draft and trades and all of that, this is how you build a true contender in this market.
But do not be mistaken. This is not a one shining moment for these the rest of the 7, because these are all things that are critical for the Thunder moving forward, obviously for the rest of the season and into the next season, because these are things that have gotten the Thunder's young players opportunities out on the floor.
Right.
Leaning into the ball movement, leading into the assists and the paint touches and the defense. Those are all critical in building up individual development throughout the season, those incremental moments, when you see it happen in real life, in real time, when you see Trey Mann rip the ball away after, just letting a guy fly by a minute or a couple games earlier, those are the moments that lead to great just development and growth for this group. And so expect to see a lot more of this as the season goes on as well.
All right. Thanks for taking this ride with us.
That was fun.
This mad dash to the Final Four and the championship. So this is good stuff from our bracket challenge.
Very, very good. And we're going to take a short break right here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, so the Thunder is about to head out on a road trip. 3 games on the road, actually. 2 states, 3 games, starting in San Antonio. Me and Gallo are actually right about as soon as we sign off this podcast, gonna hit the road and run to the airport to catch a team plane. So we are going to sign off. Be sure to tune in to Bally Sports Oklahoma on Wednesday to catch that game against San Antonio. And then the Thunder will also be in Orlando and Miami to close out that road trip as well. But until then, thank you so much for watching and listening. We had so much fun on this podcast. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're not tuning in on YouTube, be sure to do so as well. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.